Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Red Flag 2017 in Command. We've been through the scenario overview, a little bit of the briefing, most of the briefing, the highlights and the important parts. We've seen, in a broad sense, what aircraft we have at our disposal. Now, I've got the simulation started. I'm just going to let it run in real time initially until I can start to get a little bit more organized here. Now, where do I want to begin? I have all these aircraft at Nellis, and if I go to the air operations screen, I just have a big block of stuff that I need to get organized, get into the air, and start to get in there and take care of that air threat and take care of those targets. Now, the easiest way, or the way that I'm going to do it, it may or may not be the easiest, but I'm just going to build a mission up here real quick. I'm just going to call this one Marshall. So Control F11. I'll tell you what, let me try this a little bit differently. I'll have different Marshall locations for different missions. So let me just call this one Marshall OCA. Would be better than CAP. OCA for offensive counter-air. And I'm going to call this a support mission. And now all I have to do is assign the aircraft that I want available for OCA to this mission, and they're going to be there available. Now I still have to create, of course, the OCA mission. Now let me take a little bit of time here to make sure that I'm not going to really screw anything up. So 4 aircraft per flight, that keeps the number of flights down. I could do them in single aircraft or just 2 aircraft at a time, but I think 4 ship will be more manageable. Altitude, I'll just let it take whatever the default altitude is. I think 36,000 feet is where these guys will go to if I do nothing to them. That'll just depend on the aircraft. Now, what do I want to get airborne first? Let's go for some F-22s first. And I have 12 of them pulsar flight, and I have 10 available for tasking. I'm going to go ahead and get 8 of these aircraft airborne and have 2 in reserve just in case something materializes a little bit later, or I get a bigger and bolder plan and I want to use all 10 of them. So they're assigned to OCA. Now they're just going to get airborne and head up there. Now I want to do something before I forget it to the missions for the Marshall points. I want to make sure that they don't start to fire, because even right after they get out airborne from Nellis, an aircraft with A120s is going to have some of these aircraft up here in range as they transit up to the holding area. And if I don't have them holding or weapons hold, they will fire. I found that out on that little quick mini playthrough of the first initial stages of this earlier. So, okay, RTB and Winchester, no, and use refueling, yes, they will refuel if needed. And I'm going to, speaking of that, the next thing that would make sense to get airborne, okay, let me get some more of these air-to-air type aircraft, just in case these things start to come down and to get after my RC-135 rivet joint aircraft that I have up there snooping around for enemy transmissions. I also have an E-3G Sentry, an AWACS aircraft with a big radar looking out there, and it's the AWACS aircraft that's detecting all these aircraft and on the enemy side, and it's the ELINT aircraft, like the rivet joint, and like I also have an EP3E Ares ELINT aircraft snooping. So I have the AWACS detecting them, and then I have the rivet joint and the Ares classifying them and telling me what they are. Okay, so more fighters. Okay, I also had some Tornadoes that were dedicated to air-to-air. And let me just go down the list here. Okay, let me go ahead and just as I get to them, okay, I'll get 8 F-15s assigned and get them airborne and heading out to the area. I have F-16s, okay, Gamblers, set up for SEAD. They also have some JASM, some nice longer range missiles that we're going to employ here, I'm sure. And also the decoys. I mentioned during the last video that I was going to start out with a barrage of decoys, and kind of a la the initial stages of Desert Storm, with the decoys going in followed by the barrage of anti-radiation missiles. So that's kind of what I have in mind here, or actually exactly what I have in mind here. Now, I've got all the F-22s up. F-18Fs, I know that some of these were dedicated to air-to-air, and it was these 4, Victory 1, 2, 3, and 4. The rest are set up for Strike and for SEAD. So got those going up. Now I have Typhoon FGR-4s. I know, yeah, there we go. I have 4 of these that were set up for air-to-air. And I'll get them airborne and heading out there. And a lot of these aircraft I might not even use initially. I just need everything staged and everything airborne for when I decide to push in more and more package elements. I don't want to wait for them to get airborne from Nellis to fly up here and then take my chances on them finding a good route around all this stuff. I just want them up here holding so that I can employ them at will. Now that, if I didn't miss anything, was all of the air-to-air aircraft that I was going to have assigned, and it's not many when you think about what the air-to-air threat is, so I've really got to be judicious in the use of these. Okay, now I mentioned tankers before. Now that I have something going up to cover all of these ELINT and AWACS aircraft, let me get a tanker track or two, and I'll just make it one tanker track just to keep things organized. I know that I have several tankers, so let me create a mission here. I'll just call it Tanker. Being very creative there, I know. Support mission, okay. And now any tankers that I have, I just want them all to get airborne. So I have Baja, Inco, and Mobile. These are KC-135Rs. And do I not have something for the Aussies and the RAF with the drogue instead of the probe? Yes, I do. It was right here staring at me all this time. Okay, Airbus A330 tanker, Dragon 1, set up with drogues on the wings. So let's go ahead and get them airborne. I think the KC-135s. I'll check once they get airborne. I think all the tankers are configured with drogues, and of course the KC-135 also has the probe that can refuel most of the, or I think in this case, with the exception of the Navy aircraft, at least the Air Force aircraft are set up with the centerline probe on the tanker. Okay, so that's going to be my tanker track. Now, I already had a couple of missions set up. One for the AWACS aircraft, just orbiting between these 2 points, and one for the ELINT aircraft orbiting between these points, just going back and forth and snooping around. Now, I have some other ELINT type assets that I could get airborne right now, and those were going to be the Global Hawk. I have a couple of Global Hawks here assigned at Creech, although I think they would just stage out of Beale if they were going to participate in something like this. Instead of, they definitely wouldn't launch out of Creech, but I do have them available. I'll hold off on getting them airborne. And what else? I had an MC-12 that I could use. It has some ELINT capability. It also can get in close and start to snoop out some targets. I had, okay, that was another tanker that's available for CSAR if needed. I'll just have it standing by. And that's all that's really standing out at me. I could get the Compass Call. This is an ECM jamming aircraft, C-130 type airborne. I'll think about getting those types of support aircraft airborne here as soon as my fighters get up into the area, and I've got my first 4 ship of Raptors up, and as they get airborne, just to help me out and to keep things organized, I'm going to rename them. So this will be, I'll just call them for now 4xF-22, and well, there's nothing special about them, so I'll just have them there with that name. So now when I click on them, I'll just be at a glance be able to look and see what they are. But okay, this is another 4xF-22, nothing special about them. And that's going to be all 8 of the F-22s that I have available, or that I intend to launch immediately, getting airborne now. And I'll tell you what, let me go ahead and launch that other 2 ship of F-22s. I might as well dedicate everything that I have at this. This is where I need them, right up front in the beginning of the mission. I don't need to hold back on any of these assets if I can help it. Now, let's go Pulsar 9 and 10 and assign them to the Marshall OCA. And even though everything else is launching as a 4 ship, I only have 2 of them left. They're still going to launch because I don't have any restrictions on, I think, yeah, right here, if I had this clicked, aircraft numbers below flight size do not take off. If this was clicked, 2 aircraft wouldn't take off, but since I have it unchecked, they're going to get up and just operate as a group just fine. Okay, now, Tanker mission. Yeah, I already got them set up. Now, what would I want to do next? I would want to get some more aircraft marshalling, so let me set up some more marshal points here, and just to keep from having points all over the place, I'm going to try to do this as efficiently as I can, not have a whole lot of tracks and a whole lot of marshal areas, so I'll kind of reuse those or one of those reference points. Now this one, I'll call this one Marshall SEAD. Okay, 1/3 rule off, and 4-ship. And mission doctrine, I'll just make sure that they're not going to start firing and stuff until I assign them to an actual mission. Okay, yeah, and that's just fine. Now, let me assign some aircraft to this. Now, coming down the list, Storm Shadow. I'm not nearly familiar enough with what a Storm Shadow is. Let me check on that and see what kind of a weapon that is. Now, they were on the Tornado GR4s, were they not? Yeah, Storm Shadow. And okay, yeah, just a guided missile, kind of like on the US side, very, very similar to like a JSOW, or actually a little bit more similar, I think, to a JASM, a sort of a low observable standoff missile that can just take stuff out from a pretty long range. Now, it has an imaging infrared seeker that I believe this is just used for terminal guidance. Yeah, inertial INS mid-course plus passive IR terminal guidance. So what kind of a range does this give us? We see it's got a good penetrator warhead. So 454 kilogram, 1,000-pound penetrator. Does some good damage against hardened targets. Now, I was looking for range. Okay, anywhere from 10 to 135 miles. And that big disparity there will just depend on altitude. If it's from like low altitude, it's 10 miles. The higher you are, the longer it'll be able to glide and be able to efficiently use its fuel. And let me see, does it say what type of motor it has here? So yeah, propulsion turbojet engine, 550 knots, so it doesn't get out there very quickly. But yeah, I can get some good range out of these. Now, yeah, I was just really seeing if those were anti-radiation or not. Okay, now, lest I get sidetracked here, I was looking for more SEAD aircraft to assign to this mission. Now, let me bring up that side briefing one more time, and this will tell me exactly what I'm looking for. Now, I'll kind of block the screen here, but there's really nothing going on at this point. Okay, so Victory Flight, 4x F-18Fs. Yeah, this is going to be the way to do it right here. I'll just go down the list. So F-18Fs, Victory 5, 6, 7, and 8 are going to be assigned to the Marshall SEAD. I have EA-18G, six of them, Phoenix and Scorp flight, so EA-18Gs. Yep, Phoenix and Scorp. Assigning all of those to it, and those will get up as 2 flights. And CJs, the Gamblers, 8 of them assigned to SEAD. And the 8th that will be SEAD, definitely the ones with the HARMs, the AGM-88, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, and yeah, the ones with the Maldi Js for like a decoy that can actually jam as it goes out in decoy. So yeah, we'll be using these for sure right off the bat. Okay, so these are going to get airborne and start to form up. Okay, Hoosier Flight, 4x F-16Cs. Yeah, there we go. Some Block 40s, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go ahead and assign them, get them airborne. I have an EC-130H Faker. Now this was my compass call, and it's a good opportunity and a good use of a compass call to have it up there in conjunction with the SEAD, so that it can sort of selectively jam whatever it wants to jam and help things out and continue to cause confusion. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this one assigned. And I have a single B-52. This is going to be neat, using a B-52 for SEAD. Gremlin Flight. So let's go ahead and get it selected. And yeah, it'll be the one with the ADM 130 or 160B MALD. So Gremlin 1, you're assigned to the SEAD, and you're going to go out there and marshal with the fighters. Okay. Now we can see that we have our Typhoons up. So let's go ahead and rename these guys. And since I have other types of Typhoons that are going to be up in the air, I'm going to have these with OCA for offensive counter air in parentheses, just so I can tell the different flights apart. A whole bunch of different ways I could do that, but that's how I'm going to do it for this. Now, a big part of my initial plan also is going to count on having jammer support up there, and a lot of those aircraft that I got airborne that are going to be heading up here and marshalling as part of the SEAD, a lot of those are going to be my jammers. I don't just have to use them for SEAD, and in fact, I mean, these are all multi-role fighters, so for this to work and for me to achieve all of the objectives here, I'm going to have to use a lot of this stuff for more than one thing. You know, for example, and we'll see if we have a good example getting airborne here, but I'll just, you know, like the F-16Cs, okay, yeah, we'll say, for example, that the ones with the decoys go in there and fire their decoys. Well, that's not all they can do. I don't have to send them back to base at that point. I could pull them back and just make them combat air patrol, or I could just have them dedicated to air or just escorting other flights into the area. So everything that I have here can do more than one thing, and that's why it was important that I caught, and I hope I have been catching this, is that I have RTB when Winchester set to no for all the missions that I set up here, because I don't want anything heading back to base if I could be using it. And folks, just to pick up the commentary again, kind of after the fact as I edit the video together, I spend the next several minutes of the mission just buckling down and getting these flights renamed and organized as they take off. I'll show it sped up, scrolling by in the background, you're not really missing much, and I'll come back next time, we'll get some of the strike aircraft airborne and have a good look at a few of the aircraft and a few of the weapon systems we're going to be employing, and then get into the mission itself. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.